Hi guys, and welcome to Forge Right. Firstly, I'd like to explain the opening scene of this video with the 50 in the forge. That's my way of celebrating 50 subscribers to the channel. Yay! I know it's not many, but I wanted to do something to acknowledge those 50 people who have taken the time to watch the channel and hit that subscribe button. Actually, it's up to 52 now, so clearly it's going off. I make videos to show my journey into blacksmithing and general fabrication. And it's the people who watch and subscribe that make it worthwhile. Without subscribers, I wouldn't know whether my channel was really appreciated or not. And it effectively wouldn't be worth making videos or having the channel at all. So once again, I'd like to thank those people who have bothered to subscribe, and especially those people who have subscribed and make comments. I really appreciate the comments and welcome any constructive suggestions. But now to the rest of this video, which is effectively an introduction to my next project. I've been talking about this project for a little while now and planning it for quite some time. I've been scavenging materials from here and there and everywhere and trying to get all of the necessary materials together before I started the project. I think I've got what I need now, and I am about to launch into it. And that project, of course, is my coal forge that I will be building. I do have the gas forge, which I really like. You can see in the background over there, but it's not suitable for certain things. I'd like to be able to heat small areas of materials. You stick something into a gas forge and it tends to heat up the entire thing rather than just being able to heat a small area, or heat from the end of, say, a chisel or a punch or something like that. Just heat up one end of it for upsetting, or to run some heat through to do a bit of heat treatment. So the coal forge will be really appreciated for me. I run my gas forge off small bottles, so 9 kilo bottles, and they don't last all that long. It's quite expensive. Not so much the expense, but the annoyance of running out of gas and having to disconnect the bottle and head down to the supplier and get some more gas and whatnot. So I think if I can get my coal forge up and running and have a decent pile of coal out the back, or coke if I can find a good supplier, and use that in conjunction with the gas forge, I think that'll be a great way to go. So I've been drawing up some plans using an online program called SketchUp, which is gives you the ability to do both two-dimensional flat plans as well as 3D plans, so you can get a good idea of what you're looking at when you've done your plan. So I'll attach a short video of the plans that I've been drawing up, just to show what it is that I plan to do. Those plans are the original plans that I think that I want to make it like, but as with all of my projects, there's always changes along the way, so we'll see how close the actual forge turns out to be to those original plans. I have dimensions and everything on them. I've already changed one or two of those dimensions. I've started by designing a fire pot, which I was originally going to make a fire pot and have that fire pot lined with fire pavers. So I designed quite a wide fire pot itself, so that when I put the 40 mm thick fire pavers bricks inside, that would reduce the size of that fire pot area. I wanted to do that because I didn't want all of the heat being sucked into the steel, and it would give me the option to be able to have a smaller fire pit with those bricks in there, or pull those bricks out and have a larger fire pit should I require it. I've changed my mind on that. I cut out some cardboard models, which I have had a look at. things look good on paper, things look good on doing program drawings and things like that, but they don't always work out as good as what you thought they'd be in the real world. So once I'd made my two models, I started off with a 500 mil by 450 mil fire pot, which I figured once I brought the bricks in would reduce it down to a decent size. I made it, looked at it, and decided that it wasn't actually what I wanted. It was going to take up way too much room on my forge tabletop. So I am limited in the size of the tabletop I can have. It's going to be round about 1100 mil wide, so 1.1 meters, which is just a bit under 4 foot. So 1100 by 1100 square is about the maximum size I can fit in that corner over there, and which is where I want to have my coal forge. So by the time I dropped in this large fire pot, I had limited room around the outside to be able to put tools and a build-up of coal. So I decided I would reduce the size of that fire pot to increase the size of the table, and then I won't be lining it with the fire pavers. I'll just be leaving it as a steel fire pot, which will be better for size and the use of the table size, but I don't think will be as good as what the pavers would be in not sucking out the heat. So the fire in a steel fire pot will suck heat into the steel, whereas if there was fire pavers, fire bricks, that material wouldn't be sucked in to the steel. It would stay more contained in the coal or coke itself. That's my thoughts on it anyway. Could be right, could be wrong. But anyway, I've decided not to go that way. I'll just grab a couple of cardboard cutouts that I've made and show you what the two look like. Okay, so here is the design of Firepot 1. This was 500 mil across that way by 450 mil that way. That's very big. It's roughly 130 mil deep, so 4-inch or 100 mil square in the bottom as my air intake. Now, as good as that would be with the fire bricks placed in here to reduce the overall size of it, it just takes up too much room on my table. So I have pitched that idea and made another one, which is 400 mil by 400 mil. So I've reduced it by 100 mil on one side and 50 mil on the other side, or 4 inches and 2 inches for you guys in America. Still got the 100 mil hole in the bottom for my air intake, and I think that turns out to be a much better size. Still quite large, but not so large that it is going to take up way too much room on the table. Okay, so I'll leave it there and add a little bit more to the video as things progress. I have actually made that fire pot already, so I'll move the camera around and show how that turned out. I've got some video. I took some video of the making of that fire pot, had the microphone connected to the camera on a dodgy connection. I've resolved that issue now, but I may end up having to do a voiceover over that section of video, because as normally I waffle on about various ways of and what means of what I've done. The audio for that, once I reviewed it, came out terribly, so I might do a voiceover of that. I'll see how I go. Okay, catch you later.
Okay, guys, Just wanted to show you some of this SketchUp program drawings that I've been making for my new coal forge. Here you can see the fire pot. I haven't put any dimensions on here, but pretty much 400mm by 400mm. I did plan to have it 500mm by 450mm, but as I mentioned in the video earlier, I changed those plans, took up too much room on the forge table, so I'm back down to 400 by 400. So I shall quickly do a bit of a view of the I'm still learning how to use this program, so excuse me if it's a bit clunky. So here we'll do a bit of a rotational view so you can see the actual fire pot itself. That's what it looks like once it's got the border around the outside. I did say in the video that I may be changing that, and I may be having a depression cut into these two sides here. I'm pretty sure will be doing that, but at this point in time, I'll just show you what drawings I've got. So this is the initial drawing, and I reckon there'll be a fair few changes from these drawings. So we'll see how it turns out in comparison to how the forge itself turns out in comparison to the initial drawings. Okay, and this is what it should look like sitting inside the table. So that's pretty much on this drawing, I think I've got like a 1 meter by 1 meter. That's going to end up being 1100, or maybe I'm hoping to try and get up to 1200 or thereabouts wide to make more room on the table. So that's pretty self-explanatory the way it is. Just a table with the forge fire pot set inside that. So I'll come up here and show you my hood design next. I do like this program. I'm only learning how to use it, but it's very good for, this is just 2D drawings. This hood is just 2D drawings. I just decided to, instead of trying to do a 3D job, I just stick to 2D drawings here. So as you can see, this is the back of the hood, pretty much 500 by 600 box with a tapered top section, and that's where the flue comes out the top. I've got a large 350mm flue. The top of the box up there is 400 wide, and the entire, that's tapering in from a 600mm wide base. This is what it looks like from the front on. So that's the opening with the fire pot sitting down in here. So the fire pot being 400 by 400 would come from about that point there, down here, flat, and then up to there. It's a 300 by 300 opening. And pretty much just the opposite view of that. So if I come over here, this shows more detail. This is the side view. So this edge here on this left-hand drawing here is this edge here. So there will be the fire pot will be nearly 100mm, or pretty much 100mm in underneath this little bit of a projection over the top of the fire pot. So the fire pot will be down in here, so any smoke will tend to want to go in that way. So it comes up 300mm, projects out that way. It has a sloping back, so to draw the air in and bring it around this way, and then there's what they call a smoke box up this section of it here. The upper section of it here, that's the smoke box. So it tapers in from the sides, but goes straight up at the back, flush with the very bottom there. And where it comes in and slopes out the back, there's actually a plate that will run the full width of this back section, a plate that runs out here, which will be 100mm into the firebox, separating the actual bottom of the fire hood from the smoke box section, and that will have a kink in it. So it'll come 100 millimeters out, 50 millimeters up. And the intention of that is the smoke comes in, up, and then does a bit of a rotation around here and out the flue. So that's the intention of design of that, is to turn the backdraft. Any backdraft that may want to come back down and out the top of here gets hindered by this, and is supposed to create a bit of a suction out that way. So air comes in, comes out like that, and then instead of backdrafting down, it's turned back up and then back out the flue. So that's the basic design of the side, and this is effectively kind of what my forge itself will look like. That's my fire pot up here, the clinker breaker here. I changed the design. Instead of changing the design within here, I just drew a new clinker breaker down here. So that's the old clinker breaker that I designed with the two plates, a bar running through the middle, and this fingered device on a rotating spine with a handle on the end. So rotate the handle, and these fingers rotate inside a metal plate with slots in it. So those fingers will come up through the base of the fire pot. So altered it to a 4-fingered system instead of a 3-fingered system. A angle on my air intake. I've got the blower drawn in here, but actually it's not going to be like this. There's actually just going to be, I'm decided I would skip all of this section, and right here will be a connection to a ducting, 100 millimeter flexible ducting, and that ducting will come out the back, up the wall, and outside to this blower, which will be in a little soundproof type brick compartment box on its own. So air comes in here and is directed up that way. This is of course the ash dump, so when that starts to fill up in here, the ash dump is on a pivoted, there's a plate here that's pivoted at a hinge at that point, and these sections here, here, and here are all pivoting points, so that when you push your foot down on this, that pulls that down. That's a pivot point, so that pulling that lever down there lifts that up, and as that lifts up, this lifts up, which brings that down. Heavy weight on here, so when you take your foot off here, that drops back down again and closes back the ash dump. I have got in here an inspection plate here, because if I get ash coming down in here, building up in here, but some may want to come back in here, I don't think that'll be too much of the case, because I've got a big blower and I can blow air back up in here, and it's more likely to come up in here and then drop down when I turn the blower off, rather than coming back this way. But I think I'm going to put in this little inspection plate, so I can just drop a couple of bolts off, pull this plate off, and then get in there and clean any rubbish out that may be in there. I may even put a little sump in there, so that if any ash does come down here, it drops into the sump and then can be cleaned out. So that's pretty well it. That's the extensions I've got onto my table itself. So I'll just have a little 60 millimeter rise on the end there to stop coal and tools and things falling out of there. And legs are about 900 millimeters high. So that's pretty much the whole design. I'll leave it at that, and we'll see how close my actual forge comes to this design. Okay, bye for now.